She's a business mogul, #1 author, and wellness expert.
How can I help?
And now Chantel Ray Finch and her amazing guests are here to guide you on your journey to health, wealth, and godly wisdom.
Time to level up.
Welcome to the Health, Wealth, and Godly Wisdom podcast.
All right, well, welcome to our webinar today on how you can grow, scale, and exit your business. We are super excited, and I want to ask a question.
This is going to be the best webinar we've ever done. I am
that
so excited about this one.
This topic,
this is the one right here. Like I know this like the back of my hand, and I know how important it is for people to listen to this, especially if they're going to do this. But go ahead, sorry.
Well, let me just ask you guys a question. If you stopped working today, like if you actually stopped, no calls, no emails, no showing up, would your business still make money, or would everything just stop?
Yeah, you want me to you want me to answer it?
Well, I think tell what most business owners think.
Well, ultimately they think that if they stop, that it would kind of keep going. And I've talking to you about this even before we were getting this together. Is I went through this series. Like I took a year off to find out what the company can do, and it made an amount of money that was equal. And I realized I was somewhat wasting time, and that was keeping me in a job. And essentially, that really is what expanded what we're going to go into today.
Yeah, and most business owners think they own a business, but what they actually own is a job.
Which is what I realized I had. I was doing a bunch of work, wasn't even making any more money than the business could make on its own.
And just so you know, the statistics are that 80% of businesses never sell. It's not because they're bad. It's not because they didn't work hard, but it was never built to be sellable in the first place. So you can be great at making money and you can be great at, looking successful, but if the business depends on you, it has very little value. So let's just talk a little bit about how we can build something that becomes an asset that can run without you. We want to break this down into grow, scale, and exit. So we're going to start with, a lot of people want to do grow and they just stay in grow forever, and they never get to the place of scaling.
Well, and they get stuck there because what they're doing is they're saying, I'm working in this business. Nobody's as good as me. I'm doing it. It's working. I have all these hats on. I'm managing the symphony of whatever it is. And I'm just going to keep grinding and growing until they run into a screeching halt because they're dying because they realize every phone call, text, and email is coming to them. So yeah,
it's like they're the marketing department, the sales team put on the next
which they're great and talented.
Operations, now they're customer service.
And they're great and talented, so they're doing all of those things. And I think everyone knows it. They're even watching this going, yeah, I get it. But they don't know what to do from here. And I think this is why this webinar is going to be so good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about, one of the things that we've been able to do is we've been able to help businesses figure out what the problem they're trying to solve in businesses. Because I think a lot of times they have a business and they forget you have a business to solve a problem. So let's give a couple of examples so that they can kind of know what we're talking about when we say, hey, you've got to solve this problem.
I can come up with an off-the-cuff one. I think of like fidget spinners. They got kids that have attention issues, so they create a project of a thing that they can mass produce, and that is going to solve a problem because it helps people focus. All right, as many of those they can build and sell, that's their business.
Yeah, and there's really only 4 ways to actually get leads. So let's talk about the 4 different main platforms that you can get leads.
Get leads?
Mm-hmm. Like warm outreach, cold outreach. They can do paid ads or like organic.
Okay, so they're trying to get their customer acquisition, you mean? So,
yes.
So running through those different ways that they're going to reach out. You got your sphere of influence, which is your warm outreach because you already know them. Your cold outreach is like mass emails, mass text, and mailing list of things like that. So, and then obviously you can do content to drive in people that way.
Yeah. And you have to decide which one you want to be, right? Like we know a good friend of ours that is a multi-millionaire, and he built his business all from door knocking. He had a construction business and he literally did it all from door knocking. We have other friends that are like, there's no chance I want to knock on doors. Our people were just going to do paid Facebook ads.
Well, and I think of his business is the product. He knew what he was selling, what it was worth. He could even sell the paper on the back end. And so he knew what the cost of acquisition was to put that person out, to run that, canvas it, pay them a sale based on the money he brought in. So, I like the model. And I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah. And you definitely need to create systems for your marketing, your sales, your fulfillment, your customer service. And that's where
you increase your value.
Yeah. And one of the things we love to help people is we help work on their offer, making it better, making it faster, making it easier, and making it less risky. So let's give some real examples of some kind of offers that we've helped people with. Like we helped an HVAC company, and with the HVAC system with the company, we helped them come up with the same day guaranteed service, right? Because like if your HVAC, we live in Florida. If your HVAC goes out and it's 90 degrees outside, you create a plan where you do same day guaranteed service.
Because you don't want to be hot for a long time. You can't sleep when it's hot. You need those people out there now.
Yeah, like with
right
real
now.
estate, when I had my real estate company, it was like I didn't sell homes. I sold certainty and speed. We said we guarantee to sell your home in 90 days or our commission is free. So that is something that you want to get to. So now let's dive in. And this is Ryan's favorite part. So there's actually 5 different scalable models. And let's just dive right in and let's go through. Let's start with corporate model.
All right. So if you're listening to this right now is when you got to like stop. If you're driving in the car, you're doing something else, you have to stop and you have to pay attention to this part right here. Get a notepad and you want to kind of write this out because ultimately you can grow your business. You stop doing everything we've been talking about. And you start scaling everything we've been talking about. But to do that, you start setting up new locations. But to do that comes with problems. And those problems exist in different things. So you've got a corporate model. A corporate model is you got to set up a new office, you got to set up a new building, you got to set up a new location, you've got a new power bill, a phone bill, electric bill, you've got employees, you've got build out. All of that is what's in there. But again, going back to even that, we were talking about the door knocking for the construction site, for the construction company. If you do that, you know what your hard cost is. Then you know that you get all the revenue of that marketing, that warm outreach, that cold outreach, all of those sales, all of that stuff, all of that money is yours. And it has a huge upside selling it on the other side, right?
Well, I want to give actually practical examples for each one so people can kind of understand where we're at. We're going to take a quick pause right here, but we will be back in just 2 seconds. So I've written a book called Fasting to Freedom. It's called The Gift of Fasting, and it really talks about if you want to do longer fasts, deeper fasts, if you're looking for freedom. And then I have about 5 chapters. I've written a book called Tune In God's Voice. We have the book and we have the Bible study. And again, in both of these, there's about 4 chapters all about fasting and how fasting can help you hear God's voice. So you can do the Bible study with friends. You can get a group of people together and do it together, or you can join us on Zoom or get the book and, do it by yourself. So hopefully you enjoy. Okay, so I want to give people a couple of examples of the corporate model. Publix, give a couple more of the corporate model.
Well, there's other ones where they have them, like I think Inspired Brands owns like Dunkin' Donuts, a couple other companies of whatever Jimmy John's. So all those are owned, they're corporate companies that are owned by a main brand, but they're still corporate companies.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each one of these, what the good sides are, what the bad sides. So anything else on the corporate model that you want to
Well, I mean, the corporate sells with a higher multiple, right? So you have more control because you own it. You put like a manager in place and somebody that runs that location and then it operates on it. Now, a lot of times you can run this, you can still run it even similar to a franchise because you can have a corporate spot. So for example, Dunkin' Donuts doesn't make their donuts there in-house. Those are all distributed in from somewhere else. So that's a corporate model that has a national distribution of wherever it is, and they put out all the stuff there. So that's...
Yeah. So now the second one let's talk about is the franchise model.
I don't know much about this because we've only had over 100 of those, and to make the Inc. 5000, and top 500 franchises in the country. I mean, not to brag, but they say franchising is tough, right? And so
wait, I do need to say something. Okay. Less than 5% of the people will ever create a franchise that creates more than 100. So you did
5%. No, I know. That's what I say. So this is
over
what I said.
100.
It comes with a challenge because to do that is really, really difficult, right? And but to go do it, it's easier for you because you don't have to build out the cost and all the things that go on with opening a new location. You're actually getting paid to open the location, but you also just turned around and the royalties you get back are way smaller. So if the corporate model makes you $20,000 a month, why do you want to take $2,000 a month, right? And so that's a part of this. So franchising can seem like a great idea, but that is definitely a part that gets a little more difficult when you're looking at doing this model. At the same time, you lose control. Those franchisees don't do it like you would do it, right? So coming off the Dunkin' Donuts, imagine they didn't make the donuts like all the people that they corporately ship them in. Imagine Starbucks, where the coffee is all made the same when they ship it all in. Now, I know that's a publicly traded company, but they're still corporate type stores.
Well, and the other thing is that, like I said, 95% of franchises never get past 100 locations. And the truth is, if you want to make real money, you really need to get it past 100. Mm-hmm. So that's another part. And when we're talking about franchises, Subway, McDonald's, Jiffy Lube, all those franchises, people that buy those are usually investors, and they have to have quite a bit of capital for them to invest
to do the bid on everything you had to do corporately to make that amount of money. And inversely is they don't necessarily know how to do it, and you have to have a great model and a great system and build all of that out and hold them to doing that, the best you can.
We just had dinner 2 days ago with someone who wants to create a franchise model, and it's
800, it was like $800 to $1 million to just open a location. So that now closes down what the actual ability for someone who can buy that. And I was going into that, like, ours is a real estate franchise. So you had to have some type of real estate experience. You can open a Jimmy John's and it's, you don't necessarily have to do that, but it also means that you may not work in that location, right? So whether that's a absentee or semi-absentee is really important in a franchise model.
And I want to talk about, because a franchise has 3 components. So I want you to talk about what are the 3 components, and then we'll dive right into what it means to operate do a licensing model.
So if you clicked and hung up and you're not hearing this part and you just said, hey, I'm going to open a franchise, and you went and did that before we got to this part, or you decided you're going to go corporate and you wanted to go run that model, is you can actually end up going out and break franchise law. Because if you charge more than $600 in like the first 90 days or something like that, then it becomes to it. So there's the whole criteria on it. And then if you let them use the same name as you, right? So if they use the same name as you and it's a separate LLC, you're still a franchise, right? You still qualify, but there's 3 main rules. And the third one is control. So they got the name and then you have control.
Business systems.
Yeah. So if you're controlling their systems and how they're doing it, and I know I said with franchise you have less control, but I'm talking about control over the systems of what they operate, how they function, and what they do. If you have control over those, that makes you a franchise. So in order to not be a franchise, you have to not be one of those 3.
Yeah. And so it's name, business system / control, or fee. But here's the thing, we've seen people who've tried to do, and we'll get right into the licensing model, but if you're operating in the licensing model and you're using all 3 of the components,
right,
then you're an illegal franchise. That's right. And good luck to you.
Yeah. So you got to do those. And this is why we end up doing the coaching with people, because you need to figure out which of these models is right for your business, because it's different for every business. But we've done licensing, we've done corporate, and we've done the franchise.
Yeah. We've done it all. And so let's talk right into the licensing vehicle. And my favorite licensing model that I can think of off the top of my head is CrossFit, because we both did CrossFit. I don't do CrossFit anymore because I feel like every time I do it, I get injured. Like, I love it, but I'm at the point in my life, I'm too old for it now.
Now we do swimming yoga where we do the weights in the pool. I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
No, we do body pump.
No, you do body pump. That's too much work for me. I don't know how 60 pounds can be that daggone heavy.
Anyway, so CrossFit's a licensing model. And then, so they have 2 of those. So they give you the name and they charge a fee, but they don't have any business system. So they are just like, run the company however you want. You're just getting to use the CrossFit logo and name, and they're going to charge a fee. So let's expand on the licensing model.
Well, I mean, I love a licensing model. Again, the trade-off is if you're going to use our system, then you're a franchise. If you're going to go in and you're not using our system, but you're going to use our name and you're going to pay that fee, and that fee adds up to, again, more than $600 in the first, I think it's 90 days or 6 months, whatever that number is. Just ultimately, if you get close to that, I don't even do it. So that's why I don't know exactly that.
And there's also actually different models of the licensing model, which is the white label.
Yes, and that's why it ties into kind of the other hybrid, where I tie licensing into, which you can make a whole 4th, 5th category. There's 4 and 5 categories, so we have 2 other things to talk about. But the other is the software, and so you can license your software. You own the software, but you license it out, and so it falls under kind of the same thing because you're licensing it. But I call it licensing. Some of them may call it software. You may just give them software, and it's white label, which means you don't feel like you're necessarily licensing, but it still would probably have a licensing agreement.
Yeah. And I want to talk about the software model because I personally had one of the biggest mistakes I feel like I made was I decided to do a software model.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say marry me. Okay. Sorry.
And in my opinion, I would never, ever, ever. And I'm so big on this because it was such a big mistake. I probably lost about $3 million. And if I'm saving you right now, $3 million, because I lost $3 million of web development. And yeah, we lost it. And it's a $3 million gift. I'm giving it to you right off the bat. But the only way I would ever do another software company again is if I partnered with somebody
has the right code,
who can literally write code themselves. They were a coding genius, and we were like 50-50 partners.
That's right.
And he put in more money.
Why's it got to be he? You think women can't be a code person? You know
he or she put more money in than me. Then I might consider it. Other than that, heck no, I would never do it.
But you have other people that can write code, but they don't know how to market and they don't know how to sell.
Yeah, so I can do that
partners.
part.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I want to talk about some of the cons because I feel like we kind of talked we forgot to kind of talk about some of the cons. So I do want to talk about some cons of the franchising. I want to talk about some of the cons of the licensing.
All right. So in the franchising, you get this upfront fee when you're selling a franchise. All right. But the thing is, you've got to run an ad. You've got to find the avatar to get that person in. Then you've got to get them in, up and running, and set them up in the system. And now I'm thinking of this in the lens of what I did, which again, it has its challenges because you're getting them up and going. But in any franchise, you're technically no longer doing the business you started. All right. So the reason most people open up a company, and we talked about this earlier, is they open up a company, they're doing a plumbing company, okay? And instead of growing the company by adding locations, they decide they're going to add more customers. So again, they're wearing all those hats. Well, now we finally get them out of that mode, and now they want to run the business. And so now they want to run the business, now they want to pick one of these models. And if they were going to go to franchising from plumbing, you're a plumber, you're now no longer fixing toilets, you're now selling the opportunity for someone to fix toilets, right? This is where the mind shift really messes with you, because in franchising, you're no longer in it. Whether you sell a Jimmy John's, a real estate franchise, or a plumbing franchise, franchising a franchise, this is why only 5% of them succeed, because you have to figure out you're no longer in that business anymore.
You're changing your mindset altogether.
A third time. It was already hard enough to get you from fixing the toilets to running the locations. Now you got to leave running the locations to now selling an opportunity to somebody else to do it and reframe for them how they're going to succeed at that.
Yeah. And I will say, I do love the corporate model because of the control. I do like to have control. But here's the thing. There's so many downsides to the corporate model. And
I thought you were going to say the control.
No, the corporate model, because every new location, you have to do the build out. You have to negotiate the lease terms. You have to find the location. You have to build everything out. You have the risk of the lease for the duration of the time. You have to staff it. You have to control the employees. So yes, the private model, the private chain or corporate model, is it worthwhile? Yes. And the only way that I say that I would go back to doing that model is if the cash flow was insane.
Absolutely. It's if you're making $20,000 a location plus, then you can go do it.
I think higher.
If it takes you
$100,000, $50,000.
If it takes $100,000 to open location number 2 and you're making $20,000 a month, you had to give $5,000 of profit up to go get the next location going. And then it's not going to start with $20,000. It's going to be doing $20,000. And again, it depends on the business, but it's not going to make that right away. So then you're just always trading it. And you start looking at it, you're always trading the chips in. This is what happens all the way through this whole course. This is what stops people. This is what we help people navigate the risk of that, right? So you're making that risk. You need someone to bounce the idea off, somebody that's done it. How do I decide when to come out of production and start running my location? How do I start adding money into running leads, to getting new leads? And then how do I model out my next location to doing the same?
Yeah. And I'll just give you some easy math. So like, for example, like if I was looking at doing the corporate model, I would first say, okay, how low is the build out? Like we just told you, we went out to dinner with someone who was $1 million to open the store. And he so actually has, what does he have, like 6 stores or something that? But still, that's astronomical. So in my opinion, if you've got $40,000 to build out a location, or 50,000, something like that, anything more than that, it really gets expensive. Mm-hmm. And then it also would need to generate at least about $400,000 a year in profit. And then if it had 400,000 in profit and it only cost me 40,000 to build it out, in that scenario, I'd be like, all right, let's go for the corporate model.
Well, because what happens is, and I know we've talked about this on other things, the cost of goods sold when you run a lead, to getting the lead, to selling it, to the lifetime value, right? Well, that same math works in the corporate model. It's the cost of a new location to the lifetime value of that location. It's the same game. And it's the same when you run it on franchising and potentially in licensing.
Yeah, like we go get a massage right down the street, and there's another location that's a foot massage place, and like 3 doors down there's a new place that just opened up. It's called Insomnia Cookies. Well, this would be a great business to do a corporate model, and the reason is, and I have to look it up, I don't even know if it's corporate or franchise, I'm not sure, but regardless, that would be, because if you go into that location, it's like probably 600 square feet. And what do they have? One oven, one person working. And I mean, you could definitely open that up for $40,000.
Well, this is why when we're talking about that cost of goods sold, it's so important to figure this out in your business. Because once you know what your cost of goods sold is to sell a cookie, for example, you're just making distribution to sell cookie. If it's coffee, it's $5 a coffee. You figure out what is the cost to open a new location to how many $5 coffees you can sell to make money. This is what you do over and over and over in every single business.
Yeah, and those Insomnia Cookies, the way they do it is they have delivery. So the people, I guess, are late at night. They're like, "Ooh, I want a cookie." They call them. So the locations are
from
7.
experience? How do you know this? How do you know this?
I've been in there once,
checking the ring.
and I think they had like chocolate.
You went in there.
I did, but
You
they
went
had
there.
gluten-free, and it was
I find
chocolate.
out new stuff right here on the podcast.
I
about
wanted
what
to
my wife
find
does.
out for the podcast.
Curious.
You know?
Okay. All right.
So, but anyway, they literally have an oven in there. They have a front
Do I
door
even
window.
know you?
And I mean, listen,
You
they're
ain't ate a
selling
cookie since
flour and
2003.
sugar. Yeah. I like to have organic, gluten-free, no sugar, no dairy, blah, blah, blah. But anyway,
We need
bottom
to talk about
line
the
is
JV.
it's very low to build out and very high profit. So it's worth kind of owning it as a corporate model. So, and a lot of times some of the biggest brands in the world, they actually start out as private and then they realize, you know what? We need to turn this around. Just like this guy, he opened up 6 locations, figured out it's going to cost me $800,000 every time I open up another one. This is not sustainable. Let me go ahead and start franchising it. So any other,
But I think it makes him a good amount of money. He's making that opportunity for somebody to be able to do that. They put up that amount into budget to build it out, and then he had a low royalty. So I mean, it can work. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes from running that corporate to now selling franchises, because it's going to be a game changer.
let's talk about inconsistency of service.
Why do you look at me when you say inconsistency? I feel attacked.
Let's talk about that as one of the downsides.
Wait, what is it? Inconsistency
of service when you're opening up a franchise. Because if you are extremely anal retentive and you like things like perfect, and you have
then
to realize...
a franchise is not for you. It's not. I mean, think about when you go to McDonald's. Sometimes they forget your order. Well, they're pretty consistent. If you go to McDonald's, almost everybody forgets your order, right? And so at the same time, you can run it like a Chick-fil-A where they only let the managers hand out food because they don't want that inconsistency. So anytime there's an inconsistency in anything, you want to put the leader in charge, give them the process system to track it, and allow them to effectively run that. However, as you start running that through any type of scale, you're going to have a percentage of inconsistencies. And because we all think differently, we all operate differently. What's important to you may be not as important to me. So they deliver a different level or a different product of service.
And if you think about like some of the franchises, think about like all the sandwich places, like Subway, Jersey Mike's, I mean, Firehouse Subs. The reason, like, anyone can make a sandwich.
I'm having
pretty
a Subway tonight.
Perfect. You know, it's not hard to kind of make that a consistent experience because they're right there in front of you. And it's
until
like,
they
do you
forget
want
to heat up
lettuce?
the chicken. Yeah, but then they forget to heat up the chicken. They don't add enough sauce. They don't add enough.
Yeah, but
they made the
overall, it's
scoopers.
a
So then they
scalable
made the
model.
scooper where the scooper is the right size. So you always got the same. So every time you have a problem in consistency, that's what you fix on the corporate level. So when you go franchise, then you have that problem solved. That's what someone's buying is the level of the scooper to put that in the Chick-fil-A or in the chicken sandwich thing. I'm just picturing the chicken on the sub. It's that scooper, and they do the same because you always like, can I get a little bit more? You know, and they scoop in, they add a little bit on the top. Maybe that's just me, but
It's funny because we went to Chipotle the other day, and I mean the amount of food that this one guy was giving everyone in the line, they were just like baffled.
and he was listening to your order. He heard you tell me your order before we even got up there. What's she listening so close to her for? I'm just kidding.
And so I want to talk a little bit about sometimes, you know, you might be, I know we had a company, they actually were a licensing model and they were killing it. And we actually took that licensing company turned it from licensing to corporate because the numbers were so big that they needed.
Well, that's
to
what I was
switch.
going into earlier. As I said, if the location makes $20,000 a month, and you now franchise it out, you're allowing them the opportunity to make $18,000, so you as the franchisee can make $2,000. If you license it, they're paying you $1,000 a month for a system that makes $20,000. It works inversely. You find a place that's licensing and they're charging $1,000 on a model that makes $20,000. Go buy the licensing company and then start running them corporately. Because whatever it costs to open up a new location is your cost to then make $20,000 a month, if that's the numbers, whatever they are.
Let's talk a little bit about franchising cost, about like how much it costs for the attorney's fees, how much it costs for legal filings.
It depends.
A little bit.
It depends.
Yeah, but give people
because
just
I got a guy. I got a guy. So they call me because they don't want to overpay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard $750,000 out there to go franchise, and I'm like, if it was, I mean, now don't get me wrong. When we sat down, we were going to franchise that business. We had that conversation. This is going to cost. I didn't know it was going to cost that much because you got to lose to take a little royalty.
$750,000.
It's not the startup.
We've heard of people who have paid that, but not people who work with us.
No. We have all the system for the modeling, the accounting, all of that you have to have. And so it's funny. We think of it as like nothing, but that really is a resource to people. But the other side of it is, it's not the cost necessarily even to set it up. It's the cost to grow with only getting a little royalty back. That's the part you got to mentally prepare for. I mean, when we were paying technology fees for 300 people, even when we only had 100, we were losing on the tech fee for 200 people until we got past 300. And so we knew you got to model, you got to model it out in a franchise to know what your break-even number is. You got to get past. Even when I was talking to that guy about that other thing, I said, wait a minute, you're going to make, and I can't remember, don't quote me on the number.
6%.
It was like, but I think it was like, he's like, well, we'll make like $6,000.
Royalties.
Yeah, so it was like $6,000 a month or what, $9,000 a month, the number he gave me. I said, wait a minute. So you're going to make $9,000 a month and you sell 2 of these a year. You've added $18,000 a year of revenue, but you're running all the back end side of all this for $18,000 a month. They're getting a deal if you're only paying. And that's the point. That's how franchising works, is you got to give them a deal that it makes sense.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about kind of some of the pros and cons of licensing. Say a couple more models if you can think about it, and some of the pros and cons.
I love licensing, especially as we were talking about software. You don't have to have the developer. They don't work for you. They're not on staff. There's not, how you have to go back and forth to fix something 300 times and test it out and try all that. When you're licensing, it's somebody else. It's like leasing a building.
But see, I count software in its total own lane, because when I think of licensing, I like to put software as just, because it's its own beast. Yeah. So talk about just licensing licensing. Like CrossFit.
So there's a guy that runs a real estate thing. He charges a monthly cost, and it's a licensing thing. And you get to use his slogan, his thing, and it's a licensing fee you pay to use it. He doesn't run any of the business. He's not in charge of any of the other stuff. Doesn't matter whether you succeed. And then ultimately he charges that monthly fee of whatever that is. Now, he's not generating new business. He's only hoping that slogan is going to help you make more money. And again, I'm not for or against it. I'm just telling you that's how the licensing is set up. You're licensing the rights to the slogan of something. You know what? Stop paying the hustle tax. That's now my new license. If you want to license this from me, it's $1,000 a month. I mean, that's essentially what happens.
So let's talk about, and I want to remind you, if you're thinking about running a franchise, this is the part that you have to be careful with. Like I said, 95% of franchises don't hit over 100 locations. And if you really want to make really good money, you've got to get to over 100
You know what I love?
What?
Hermosi hates those. You know that, right? Because he couldn't succeed at that. He wanted all the other ones.
Yeah,
and we won at that one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then if you want to do it, partner with us. We'll show. I know how to franchise and run a franchise, because again, it has nothing to do with the industry anymore. And I think that's where, and probably because he lost control or whatever it is. I mean, not that he hasn't obviously won successfully in the things he did, but it's just, I think once you lose at that, you kind of get burned by it. You start to not like it. And at the same time, I think it's a really good vehicle when it's done right, if you know how to do it.
And I think what the other part that we've really figured out, The reason why I believe he doesn't like franchising is because there's so many people out there that are taking advantage of people, like we said, charging $500,000, $750,000 to do the franchising, get the legal docs, do all that. So then the margins are high. It costs so much to start
to get up and going,
to get up and running. But we've kind of we've got the systems to do the skinny model of the franchising. So because we've got it down, all those fees down, we have the right people to call. That's why we like the franchising model.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to.
Yeah, it's an option. It's a great option.
Yeah. So let's talk about multiples on the exit, because I think that is another piece of the puzzle, because obviously my book, Grow, Scale, and Exit. So if you haven't had a chance to go buy the book, you can get actually a free chapter. It's called Grow, Scale, and Exit.com. You can get a free chapter. And when you buy the book, you actually get 4 really great videos that I teach. Ryan and I teach on some different things on how to get your business and sell it for top dollars.
Well, and I read this book. I read it multiple times because there were renditions and changes that she added, and she gets more and more. So she likes to give more and more value. So she kept adding. And ultimately I was like, you can take this thing and really do a lot with your business with just this one book. It's crazy that you could do. I just couldn't believe you took all this information and put it in there. And so don't buy the book. Call us for coaching. Pay us way more money to coach you, and we'll tell you exactly what part of the book. We'll read you the book to it, or you can bypass it and just buy the book. Buy the book, and then when you grow your business really, really well, call us, because we're going to implement those things when we help you sell that business.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked, God, are you speaking?
What on earth am I here for?
In a world full of noise, opinions, and distractions, He's been trying to reach you. In Tune In, God's Voice, Your Purpose, it answers these questions. Hear God, find freedom, discover your purpose, make a difference. You'll finally learn how to know the difference between God's whisper and your own inner noise, how to reinvent yourself with every new season, and how to answer the question every person asks at some point. What on earth am I here for? If you're ready for clarity, direction, and breakthrough, this book is your guide. Quiet the chaos. Hear Him clearly. Step boldly into your calling. Tune in. God's Voice, Your Purpose.
That's what's
so with multiples of selling, which model do you like the best for multiples? I think it's software.
Yeah, well, see, and I was going to go with that with licensing. Remember, we just talked really badly about the licensing model, because if you can make so much money, why do you charge someone $1,000 so they can make $20,000? Now, I will take that the other way, and I think you're going to agree with this, is because the recurring revenue, because you know what that agreement is, it's consistent, it's there, you know it makes it so simple. See, licensing is what the simple people do, and I don't mean that as like a negative in a really bad way. I mean it in a way that simple scales, and there's nothing wrong with that, because when you have one product and you charge this fee, that guy has the one name, you have one software, whatever it is, you pay it, and they pay licensing, and now it's provide this one thing. There's no multiple levels to it. Now that's also the downside, because you can't necessarily vertically integrate any other revenues to that business, so you can only grow it. The other downside to that is it also hits a scaling point when it hits, and it starts to come down, right? Because you have a churn rate in that one, you're going to see more than any other model.
Yeah. So I think churn rate's really important, but I also think now with AI, so back to what I told you I created a real estate software platform. It cost me about $3 million. And that program, to rebuild it, even though it cost me $3 million, we had 6 full-time web developers on staff at one point building that out. Now, because of AI, because you can create stuff for so much cheaper, now it would probably cost, still it's going to cost some money to get up and running, but it's surely not going to cost $3 million. No. So I think AI has made a massive disruption in software.
Yeah.
So getting into software / AI.
But that's the downside. That means licensing is going to become less valuable. Right? So it's like you can't get a plumber to come in and do plumbing. So now the plumbing values of the companies are all going up because you can't get a plumber. Yes. But a developer is not necessarily needed. You can develop the same software for half the price and half the energy. So now ultimately that drives that value down. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. So we've talked about all 5 models.
No, we didn't talk about the JV.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
We
my
surely
goodness.
didn't. All right. So let's talk about JV. We've had multiple JVs. Why don't you start? Talk about
We've
some
been on
of
both
them.
sides of the JV, right? So we've joint ventured with something where we went in, they ran all the operations, they came in, we had our own business, our own entity, they ran that backside of it, and we partnered on it. We partnered on real estate deals, we partnered on it in businesses. A JV is a beautiful model, right? Some people do it in new construction stuff, so there's all different ways that you can set up a JV. And so the JV is just simply setting up its own entity, and which is good. So we're going to go back to this. If I was running a corporate store and I wanted to open up the second corporate store, instead of me owning all of it, you partner with me and we own it together. Now, this is where it gets tricky because again, you start running the same name and I charge you any amount of money. I'm now hitting franchise law, right? So I've got to be really careful with that to not hit franchise law. So I'm not telling you, didn't hear that from me to tell you to do that. I'm telling you how not to do that the wrong way. And so pay attention to that. But that's the side of it when it comes to the JV. Now, ultimately.
So hold on.
Yeah.
I want to, just for people, a lot of people haven't heard what that term is and
joint
don't
venture.
understand it. So it's joint venture, but let's talk about a perfect example because obviously we are from the real estate space. Talk about some of the joint ventures that we did with mortgage and title.
So, I mean, ultimately what we did with the title companies, we would go in and we would buy into a company. We put up money, they put up money, and then we partnered on it. They ran certain things. And then because you had to be compliant in that space, they had to do certain things. You had to have an employees, an office, a desk, and you meet all the regulations that you need in any space you go into a JV. And in that case, we met all those, we shared on those, and then we could help drive in business to that company because it was our company. And now we weren't getting paid on driving in business. We were getting paid on what the business produced. And the efficiency of it was done through a JV because they were running multiple companies, and when you're running multiple companies, you have an economy of scale, which helped us create a larger margin.
Yeah. And I remember when I first started in the real estate business, I actually started my first JV right away, like instantly, because I kind of had heard about it. And think about just how easy it was. So I think I started out, I put down $25,000 originally. This was back in the day. And my attorney, it was Jones Walker and Lake out in Virginia Beach. And then we did a joint venture. And so anyone that I sent to them, we created basically a title company. She was the best attorney in the state, in my opinion, probably in the country. So it's like, I felt so safe doing that because it's like, here I'm partnering with someone who's the best attorney in the state and probably in the US. And it cost me $25,000. And then I made money every time we closed a house, and we obviously were the number one, team in the state. I mean, so it kind of made sense.
Well, and for her, it makes sense because now she can do that. She meets all the RESPA compliant type things to set up its own entity. And now she has a partner that is in the marketing side and drives in business and does that while she can handle the back end. So she's not out there beating the street trying to come up with new customers, one-offs, right? So you're generating you're a multi-client. So when you do a JV, you bring in a multi-client. So you're sharing equity, bringing in a multi-client. It's better than going one-offs. And that's no different than almost selling a product wholesale to a company that sells it retail for you.
Yeah. And I think, as far as with that licensing model, any other downsides that we want to talk about with that you can think of that are some downsides? I mean,
like the exit sale of it is less. It's less because the revenue is less. The margin can be higher, but the revenue, it just depends on whether you're selling on revenue or on profit. But ultimately, and then the other downside is because in a licensing, usually your cost of goods sold, like what you're selling, the product number is low. So when you spend, the margin of that rate of return is lower. So if you got to spend $1,000 to get $1,000 back, but you have to wait till month 2 to get to the profit. Does that make sense? Whereas you could be in another product, you can spend $5,000 and make $25,000 in month 1. You're now 5 times ahead. So if you spent $25,000, you're now making $125,000. So it's just that CAC is really important.
And so if you enjoyed this video, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button. And just, if you've never met the two of us, I'm Chantel Ray Finch. This is my husband, Ryan Finch. We currently own about 16 companies. We've exited 4 of them. So if you've ever thought about coaching and taking your business to the next level, you can grow, scale, and exit. We really, really, even if you're not thinking about selling, I have to tell you this. I'm currently working with someone whose husband just recently died. He committed suicide and it was absolutely tragic. And she is fine with me telling people about it because she has said that I can share her story, and she's fine with me telling her story because she wants other people. She's actually going to come on the podcast and kind of share the story because she wants other people to learn from what she's learned the hard way.
She wants to help other
but
people.
she wants to have her pain turn into her purpose. So
that's good. And I'm so glad that y'all got introduced. And that's what I love about business and people, and so, ultimately, if you haven't, you can subscribe. We have Facebook, we have Instagram. I would follow the YouTube for a lot of the other values that we provide there. And then we have coaching. We do monthly coaching that you can set up with as well. So if you're interested in any of that, we really, ultimately, you've heard this is free. I mean, imagine what we do if we would be looking into your business.
I think one of the things you really have to understand is like, when we get to know you and we coach with you, we can very quickly go, which model I think is best for you? It's this one. And here's it's like my mom used to say, it's like, know thyself. If you know you're extremely controlling, then this model might not, franchise model might not be good for you because, or licensing model might not be good for you. Just we learn a little bit about you and we figure out, knowing your personality, which one of these 5 vehicles will be the best fit for you.
And I try and do the feel of the business, the identity of the business, right? So that is also a part of what it is. How is it going to grow and scale to what you want your life to look like? And so that's another part of it. So a lot of different factors in doing that, but we've got to dig into way more than that. The lifetime value, the cost of goods sold, the customer acquisition cost. There's a lot more to doing this, to growing a business than we can, just say on this podcast.
Well, like it says behind me, stop paying the hustle tax. You don't have to work harder just to get your business to scale. So you can go to finchfreedom.com, go to canzel.com if you're thinking about exiting your business. We'd love to work with you, and it's been a pleasure working with you today. I know you love this topic, and I do too. Right. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.